Welcome to Intimate Conversations, where we support you in healing heartbreak so you can live fully embodied, unapologetically, and deliciously free, being exactly who you are. We are sponsored by Magic Mind, my morning elixir that I swear gives me more focus, expands my joy, and puts an extra spring in my step. So, okay, you luscious creature, it is time to get intimate. Hello, you delicious people, and welcome to another episode of Intimate Conversations with a woman who I've been getting to know more and more through Instagram and IG Lives. I'm like, we need to have her on the Intimate Conversations podcast, the amazing Natalie Pace. You can find out more about her at nataliepace, PACE.com. I'll put all of that in the show notes. Let me tell you a bit about her, and then we're going to get away to the races here. So she is an advocate of sustainability, financial literacy, and women's empowerment. And she's the best-selling author of The Power of 8 Billion. It's Up to Us, and is the co-creator of the Earth Gratitude Project. And get this, she's been ranked number one as a number one stock picker above over 835 A-list pundits by an independent tracking agency called Tips Traders. And her book, The ABCs of Money, remained at or near the number one investing basics ebook on Amazon for over 3 years, and with over 120 downloads and
120,000.
Thank you, downloads, and a mean 5-star ranking. And the 5th edition of the ABCs of Money was released on September 17th, 2021. And Natalie's easy as pie chart nest egg strategies earned gains in the last 2 recessions and have outperformed the bull markets in between. Like, what does that mean with where we're going right now, right? And that is why her investor educational retreats, we're going to talk about an online retreat and an in-person retreat, her books. We're going to talk about who wrote the forewords to all of these amazing books, and her private coaching are enthusiastically recommended by, get this, Nobel Prize winner economist Gary S. Becker, TD Ameritrade chairman Joe Moglia, Kay Koplowitz, and many Main Street investors who have transformed their lives using her Thrive budget. That's what we talked about on the IG Live last time, and her investment strategies. And I want to be sure you go to nataliepace.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, because that's where this upcoming January online retreat is. And I just, every time I see you, you're so beautiful, and you always have this beautiful background of England.
Yes.
where the March retreat,
where my heart lies.
where your heart lies. Yeah. So a lot of people that were on the IG Live loved you, but for those on the podcast who don't know you yet, I'd like to start, because you're so established, so successful, etc. But you didn't start out like this. And to let them know really your story, your money story and your life story that got you to where you are. So take it away, please. Share us your journey.
Okay. So, and thank you so much for that incredible, introduction, and I want to say, look, I've been doing this since 1999. So that's 20 years of work, right? Yeah. It's not like a flash in the pan, but when I was a single mom, I was going through a divorce. And of course, as all of us experience when you split up with somebody, now you have 2 households and the same amount of money that you had, right? And so I inherited the house, not the 401k. The house was actually underwater on the mortgage. And I didn't have enough to really pay all my bills. And so it was really, really, really difficult. And then I would read, all these books about how you can fix your budget. And they'd say, cut out cafe lattes, stop being a shopaholic. And I was like, we haven't had ice cream in 2 years. Shut up, And I knew that I wasn't, what I was hearing wasn't going to solve the problem. And so what I did is I just dug deep, and I was like, look, a budget problem or a debt problem is a budget problem. And all that needs to be fixed, although it's difficult and it requires brave choices, is you have to earn more and you have to spend less. And it's not, if you already are not a shopaholic and you're already not eating too much avocado toast or drinking too many cafe lattes, which is a big myth. I mean, look, everybody deserves avocado toast and a cafe latte every now and again. If you're mainlining it, okay, you could save hundreds if you stop doing that. But what the real problem is, thousands, right? We need to learn housing is unaffordable, gasoline is unaffordable. all of these things are really outlandishly unaffordable. How do you fix that? It's not going to be, by cutting out your avocado toast. So, I just went through brave choices and figured it out. I teamed up with a single mom. We got a bigger place in a better neighborhood for about, 1/3 of the cost. I then had free babysitting when I needed it. Obviously, we weren't going to take advantage of one another. We shifted off the cooking duties week on, week off. And it was it's really not a lot more expensive to cook for 4 people than 2, especially when you consider that 40% of food is wasted. And that, believe it or not, I did that, I believe, in 2002. And within 6 months, I was on Good Morning America. And then within a year, I had met Steve Forbes and was partnered with him on the Forbes Video Network. And then I had, all these economic theories about how to empower women, how to fix the budget, the Thrive budget, easy as a pie chart nest egg strategies. And, Nobel Prize winning economist comes into my life. And I said he was astonished that I wasn't in graduate school. And I said, would you write the foreword? And he said, yes. And I nearly died and fainted. And, so everything, but it all stemmed from that moment of saying, okay, what's out there in the mainstream is really not what's happening in my life. I think that a lot of other people are in this boat, and I'm going to fix that for myself. And if it works for me, then I'll share it with others,
I love it. Wow. Wow. Okay. So I'm just digesting all of that. So here you are, you've made the choice to move with another mom, share cooking, the babysitting, the whole thing. What were you doing with the money in the very, very beginning when you had very little, in terms of beginning with this Thrive budget and saving and investing? Because from the IG Live, what I remember, if I remember correctly, half of what you're bringing in is what you're going to live on. And if I were to ask most people watching this, I would say half of what we make, we just use for rent or our mortgage, right? So teach us a little, let's transition into what does the Thrive budget look like so that you can start to have money work for you.
Yeah. And I love this. So and that's the key, right? Like getting to having your basic needs only half, that is going to require brave and smart choices, right? So the first thing that you want to do, and also increasing income, what I realized is I wasn't going to increase my income massively by earning more. The only shot I had was by investing. Okay. And so I started taking 10% of my income whenever I got my hands on anything and put it into tax protected retirement accounts that I could invest. And as it happened, and I was doing a boatload of research. This wasn't just women. I always say women's intuition, or intuition of any kind, is actually what I call complicated pattern recognition. So like if you're an elderly woman and you're given a stink eye to your 19-year-old granddaughter's new boyfriend, it's because 1,000 files have flown open and said, red alarms, right? And she might not see it because she just doesn't have the experience yet. So I think it may be, my kind of analytical side that always wants to explain things that are a little bit more ethereal. But that's the way that I look at it. Yeah. And so it was not at all women's intuition. It wasn't anything like that. I really wanted to understand how to pick stocks, and I wanted to buy them at a good price and sell them at a good price. And I was fortunate that I didn't listen to a lot of people and did listen to other people. And mostly, honestly, everybody always asks me this, like, do you read the Wall Street Journal every day? Do you watch CNBC 24/7? No, I read data, analytics, and statistics all over the map, from the Federal Reserve Board minutes to the earnings reports. I put together my own stock report card, my own analytical tools, and they work. And they work really well. So we teach them at the retreat. So anyway, what ended up happening was all of this was happening right at the onset of the dot-com recession. I'm dating myself. So dot-com stocks lost 78% between March of 2000, and some people realize this, and October of 2002. I had the good fortune in that time period of almost tripling my money by investing. And so because I live in Santa Monica, even though I was the poorest person with the smallest, dinkiest condo, my son went to a good school, and I was doing charity work, which is another part of the Thrive budget. And those women sniffed it out. They found out what I had done. And again, it wasn't any amount of money compared to their millions, but it was in percentages. It was very impressive. And so they said, will you please teach us what you know? Our husbands and our brokers lost all our money. And I said, well, the first thing I want to teach you is that nobody does anything to you as an adult that you don't allow to happen. Right. So you have to be the boss of your money. Yes, that's the whole point. You don't turn your power of your future over to somebody else. You have to be the boss. So anyway, that kind of leads us back to the original question, which was the Thrive budget. The first thing is earn money while you sleep. It's taxed at the lowest tax rate, and not even taxed if you do it in tax protected retirement accounts properly. Okay. So first start earning, put 10% religiously in there. And if you can't do that, it's not like, oh, I got to pay down my debt first. I know that everybody thinks that. It's not a good idea to think that, because no debt collector is going to take up a collection to help you in retirement or to help you get on your feet if you lose your job. That's something you have to do for yourself. So you have to love yourself enough to put 10% of your income religiously into your own tax protected retirement account. Learn enough, the life math that we all should have received in high school, so that you can grow it and protect it. And then number 2, I say charity. And now if you haven't fixed your budget yet, and you just can't afford 10% of your money, do time, do talent. Do like the universe, and here I am now going into this nebulous thing because I am a spiritually activated person.
The universe is science too, so don't worry. Yeah.
So the universe loves time and talent. In fact, we talked about this before. I believe that money is a magic token of gratitude. I believe that time is a magic token of gratitude. Talent is a magic token of gratitude. And again, I got into being the CEO of the Women's Investment Network because first, I was very successful when most people lost a boatload. And secondly, I was in this nonprofit endeavor working as the chairman of my son's silent auction because I wanted to increase my professional skill set. And all of the women said, please do this. And they, there's no other scenario I can think of where people would be that connected over that period of time to learn so much about each other and actually say, well, please do this. And I said, I don't know if it's a system. We'll support you. How do you want to start this? Right. And then the third one is education. And again, it may be that you have to pay for that education, or as in my case, find a creative way to do it. So, as the Women's Investment Network CEO, I could go to Forbes, or I could go wherever I went and just say, look, if you don't have a woman in the room and talking about economics and money, you better put me in there, right? And they did. Wow. And now there's a lot more women in there. I mean, finance was this was only 20 years ago. There were no women in the room really to speak of. So educate yourself on whatever it is. You've all heard the 10,000 hour rule, Sure. Yeah. And you really have to make sure that you're educating yourself in the right way. Like I have known people that watch CNBC 24/7 and, read the Wall Street Journal every day, and they feel like they're so informed. But does it add up to a system that works? Right, or are you just, reading a bunch of stuff? I do none of that. And I've been ranked the #1 stock picker. So what I'm telling you is that probably reading the thoughts of other writers who are reading the small, and nobody works as hard as you're going to work for yourself too. So you can't just follow blindly. You can't just think that, if you bathe yourself in somebody else's ideas, that all of a sudden that's going to be a wise path, because sometimes it's actually the opposite of that,
Wow. So the stock picker to be educated of how you did that. That's the system you created that you teach with your online retreat that's coming up, or your in-person retreat. You teach people how to be the boss of their money and do this themselves.
Yes. And I will say this, for those of you that say, hey, I don't want to be a stock picker and I don't want to have to worry about all that. You don't. It's literally the pie chart system is easy as a pie chart. And that should be taught in high school. Everybody who comes to the retreat there's always people, especially people that are really reticent, like think, oh, I couldn't possibly do this. They come to the retreat, and then after the first day, they're like, I learned more in one day than I learned in my entire life, right? And this is
Nice.
so easy, and it should be taught in high school. But we also do spend day 2 showing you my system for stock picking. You could say after that day, I don't really want to ever have to do this because I don't have the time, but I really love the other parts of it. And
Right.
that's totally fine too. But it's also fun, and it's a game, and you can teach it to your teens and that sort of thing. So I would say overall, it's the life math that we all should have received in high school. It's absolutely life transformational, and, not just for me.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot in my coaching community. I find a parallel with the inability to receive love or receive money, that it has a self-worth component. And before we started the recording, you were talking about the money and the brain and the hormones of being able to associate money with joy and pleasure and fun and generosity, etc. So go a little more into the psychological and the hormonal and the point of view, the psychology of money, please.
Oh, I love this topic. And by the way, I do have a book called The Gratitude Game, right? So, and that is a 21-day program. It says to a healthier, wealthier, more beautiful you. And it was originally designed because after the retreat, I wanted people to be able to implement the lessons from the retreat.
Yeah.
But the program is, you're supposed to listen to it first thing in the morning. It has a daily gratitude mantra. And almost all of these are what you talked about. They're talking about being the boss, learning how to say yes, learning how to forgive, learning how to be grateful without, just like ticking it off and counting it, but actually resonate, like gratitude, happiness, forgiveness. You can't force yourself to do these things. It's not, because it's a reactive emotion, right? But what you can do is start learning how to open up your heart and how to, how to lean into it. You can certainly do activities that will get you closer to that person that knows how to receive love and receive money. But you can't force yourself and say, I'm a person who receives love. You have to really go and do the work. And that's,
you have to embody it.
That is the beginning, recognizing that you deserve it. It is absolutely the beginning. But again, that's why I have the program as a 21-day program with a mantra every day that's a different mantra to attack it from a different angle of just wearing it down. But and I do it myself. There are certain times, and by the way, I've been so befuddled sometimes with my emotions. I went to India to go study with the Dalai Lama for a month because I just was too overwhelmed and I didn't know how to get past it. Granted, I had the resources to be able to do that, right? And I know not everybody does, but I'm just saying that, there are certain times when the emotional challenge that comes at us is more than we can bear. And this isn't my mantra. This is something I think I learned from Michael Bernard Beckworth. He always said, what within me needs to grow. So this is no longer a problem, right? And one bit of warning before we move on to the next thing we talk about. Look, we are probably headed into a recession. We're already experiencing, inflation and unaffordable living and all of these challenges. It might get more challenging. So now is the time to try to be ahead of it. I'm saying fix the roof while the sun is still shining. And I say that to everybody. And there are solutions, and they are not found in the mainstream media. And I'm not saying that so that you'll just seek me out. I'm just saying that because I was in your shoes. I looked everywhere. I looked under rocks, and it was so frustrating. And I had to live my way into the answer. And then I wrote the book.
Right, right. And so the solutions you're speaking of are the Thrive budget. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah.
And the easy as a pie chart nest egg strategies, because a lot of people are working a day job and they're working really hard, and they may have money that's automatically going into a 401k. And what if that is at risk of losing half?
Right.
And losing half of your wealth means your credit score plunges. If you're close to retirement, you could be in real trouble. You might lose your home. So, that's what I mean is that you may think, oh, well, I don't have time. I've got to earn. And I'm saying right now, you've got to protect too.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Wow. Okay. This is really good timing for this interview to be coming out. Talk about, so the Gratitude Game book supports the way we look at money. I often say to my clients, and I love your point of view on this, how do you think about money? And I remember the very first time I gave money a persona, it was a guy, and his back was to me like this. And he like maybe gave me some attention every so often. That was it. And I'm like, we're breaking up. We're breaking up. I need to date somebody different. And then
I want someone who leans in on me.
Yeah, right. And then I decided I would change it to this like 1,000-armed goddess creature, like a sea anemone. And she was just there to support me. And she was centered and grounded and heart open and wise. And she was fierce and bold if she needed to be, and brave, but she was fluid and she was certain, and she's golden. And so that's my new way when I talk to the energy of money, talk to the energy of my business. I really believe it's conscious energy that responds to my vibration. And I need to be brave enough, slow down and listen, and then seek education, all the things you're talking about, to have a different relationship with money. And in my experience, not everybody has a positive relationship with money. So do you talk to money? Do you have a persona for money? What are your thoughts on partnering, being in communion with, co-creating with the energy of money?
Yeah, and I'm going to comment this from the scientific level and then go back into the spiritual. So the truth is, yes, I use Lakshmi, who's the Indian goddess of prosperity. Yes. So she's part of my daily meditation.
Lovely.
And more like my meditation is more like I call in all my spiritual advisors and then get out of the way. I just say, okay, I'm going to go into meditation mode. Come on in. You guys guide me today, guide me where I'm going. Let me know what's lying ahead as much as you can.
Yeah.
And let me be that vessel that gets us there. But I also want to say, from a scientific standpoint, look, we've seen the statistics that the rich are getting richer and the middle class is shrinking and all of this, right? And part of the reason for that has to do with it's not like they don't have to invite in somebody that they create. That's money is a part of their life and their conversations and what they do. It is who they are. Do you know what I mean? Like my son's relationship with money is very different than mine was, when I was growing up. Very, very, very different, because he was grown up watching, a mother who was an entrepreneur, watching a mother who invested, watching, watching a mother who gave gratitude, watching a mother who, if she couldn't afford a tip, wouldn't eat at the restaurant. And if she did eat at the restaurant, afforded a good tip, no matter what, So he grew up in a different way. But like really rich people, they are having these conversations with their children. Warren Buffett, every one of his children has their own foundation. And part of that was education and financial literacy, because statistically, wealth is lost by the third generation. And that has to do with people not understanding and having a proper relationship with money. If you're a lottery winner or a sports celebrity of any kind or an actor, it's statistically within 2 years of you not being able to do your craft, you're bankrupt. Or lottery winners bankrupt within just a few years. And all of that has to do with not having a relationship with money. And your side of it, to say, let's have a conversation with money, absolutely. And then my side of it too, and you already mentioned this as well, is let's talk intelligently with it. Let's also meet it halfway. Like, let's not, I don't know, let's not walk in the middle of the street and pray that we don't get hit by a car. You know what I mean? Like, let's do our part too. Let's not just be, but sadly, in today's world, where anybody under 40 could be spending half of their income on rent, you're not doing anything wrong to be in this horrible situation. You're not. It was a situation where expenses went out of the roof and wages were stagnated for too long. And now they're trying to correct it. That's going to bring in hard times for everybody. That's according to the, Federal Reserve Board. And it always hurts middle class and below the hardest. So the only solution for that is brave choices and life math and having a relationship with money. You know what I mean? Because once you have that relationship, once you're paying attention, you have heard this from other, like especially, law of attraction type people, and it is true. If you don't focus on it, how do you expect it to, grow? What your plants would die.
Yeah,
What's going to happen with your money,
totally. Yeah, completely.
And you don't have to obsess over it, right? You don't like have to go to your plant every day and say, oh, please grow. You just have to get it the proper kind of conditions that it needs to grow naturally, and
Yeah.
water it and say, I love you. And,
Yeah.
it does its own thing,
Yeah. I love this. A quick question and then a deeper one. So in terms of like spending the time with the plant, spending the time with the money, what is a realistic, like how much time do you spend honoring, taking care of, managing, educating your money? Like, because I'm imagining you don't stop, just you learned all this and you teach all this, but you live this, right?
Yeah.
So what does your actual day
And
look like
even
or week look like?
and also, I think even more importantly than what I do, which obviously is my job, right? So I'm like
Yeah.
nonstop money. But like, what about my volunteers who have other jobs, right? And they've been to multiple retreats, and so they know the system really well. So once I call it this, think of it like a house you build, right? Like if you're going to build a house, you have to really sit down, you have to draw it out. You want to make it, passive house so that it doesn't use a lot of energy. You have to know how many bathrooms and bedrooms. Is it going to have an upstairs, a downstairs? You have to do a lot of work designing it, making sure that it's properly designed, that it's going to last. And so that process is very time intensive. Now, again, I think we should have learned this in high school. So if you didn't, you are going to have to learn how to build your financial house. Once you build it, you move in, and you might spring clean once a year. You might spring clean once a year, clean again in the new year, and then think about cleaning again, maybe back to school time. So you could do it once a year, spring cleaning, or 3 times a year. And that's all you'd have to do, because you would already live in that house, and all you're really doing is re-sprucing it.
Right.
Occasionally, maybe you're going to paint a room. It's not obsessive. Now, do you think about money the whole time? No, because once you adopt the Thrive budget, your money problems are solved. When I moved in with that single mom, I had a year of crying and, kind of like some sort of wrestling the bull and, feeling like the whole world was against me and they hated single moms. And then I come up with a solution, and I go on, and get to speak to Diane Sawyer about it, and she's like, wow, and it seems so simple, and that, by the way, wasn't my idea. That was Co-Abode, and I already told you about them, that they had, this guidance of how to pick the right partner. And we can talk about this in terms of intimacy too, because, if you don't have, like, a lot of people, when I know we want to talk about this, a lot of people do move in together to save money, right, with their beloved, or even somebody that they don't know well enough. They kind of like them and they think it's going in the right direction, and then the money pressures, they seem to make sense that way. But moving in with another single mom allowed both of us the freedom to recognize when somebody we were dating was not going to make the life partner checklist.
Right. Beautiful.
And if you've moved in with them, then you have a whole different thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to live with this woman or other roommate or whatever for the rest of your life, but it doesn't have that pressure because you didn't marry them in the first place,
Totally. What are some questions? We're going into a potential recession and people dating and all the rest of it. What would be some green flags, red flags, conversations to have as you begin to date somebody during a time of potential invitation to contract, invitation to be afraid? What are some good signs and some not so good signs?
I don't know. I've been divorced twice, so I don't know that I'm very good at picking partners. Definitely not life partners. I'm really good at picking friends, even men friends, But I would say, that I could talk more about mistakes, and it's very interesting because I do have a lot of friends that have long-term relationships, maybe 30 years, 40 years, maybe all their adult life. And the one common thread throughout all of it is that they work together, right? Like they can hit rough patches and they work together. I think that it becomes more difficult if there's any kind of toxicity in there.
Mm.
So, and that can be money, right? Like I had put on my list that you and I should talk about, what if somebody is in a relationship and let's say that they're a saver mentality,
Yes.
and which by the way may not be as healthy as that should, you might think, oh, I'm a saver, so I'm really cool, right? But are you investing? Are you having fun? 20% of the Thrive budget is fun. And you and
Yes.
I could talk about the importance of endorphins in helping your
Yes.
relationship with money and all areas of your life. So, I'm not saying if you're a saver that you're, like an angel, and if you're a gambler, you're a devil. I'm just saying that those are very, they're diametrically opposed
Yes.
energies, right?
Yes.
So you're going to have to find a way for this not to be toxic to your partnership, right?
Yes.
That there are boundaries there if that's what's going to happen. I would say that knowing the Thrive budget is going to help.
Mhm.
I do recall, a psychologist, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. He said, there is a certain amount of money that you could light on fire and your partner shouldn't say anything about it, if it's your
Oh,
money,
ah,
right? So I think that boundaries come with a wisdom too,
yeah.
right? Like if the saver thinks she's an angel and that the gambler's the devil, then that blinders are not allowing you to see what's real. Maybe the gambler is going to be good at investing, and if their parameters are done right, that could actually be what the game changer for your whole life.
Sure. Sure. Yes. I love that. With money, people that have are in debt, I often think of debt as self-punishment. I remember, Natalie, back when I was going through that 12-year custody battle, and
Mm,
it wasn't going well. And I lost the house, the savings, and there I was in $250,000 of legal debt, and my son was
lovely.
on the line. When I looked at that debt, I made myself wrong for not winning in court. I made myself wrong for not being a good enough mother. I made myself really, really wrong. And when I began to change my point of view, forgive myself, stop being ashamed of myself, stop avoiding this problem, and I changed it to, hey, instead of this being $250,000 of legal debt and aren't I a loser, I changed. I said, you know what? This is my PhD in consciousness from the best universe in the galaxy. I have learned a lot, and I'm so grateful for all I've learned. And just shifting it from self-abuse and punishment into gratitude for the lessons inspired miracles that occurred, but also practical steps that I took. And I started to realize that if we don't forgive ourselves, we attract that same lesson again in a partner, and we tend to stay in debt, or we get the money and then we squander it. So what is your experience with all that you do with money in terms of shame, in terms of lack of forgiveness, and in terms of debt?
Yeah, and I deal with this a lot in my coaching. So it's so funny because a lot of times in my coaching session, someone will say, oh, I did this and I lost this. And I said, okay, first of all, like, you have to start thinking of yourself more like an athlete thinks of themselves. I was really fortunate, and I have to say this, I was at
Yeah.
the Laker game last night. It was
Ah,
invited into a box,
nice.
and it's LeBron James, right? It's there is 1.6 seconds on the clock. The
Wow.
Lakers are down by 3 and the Pelicans are shooting free throws. So it looks like it's over, right?
Yeah.
The Pelican guy misses both free throws.
Yeah.
LeBron James gets the rebound and does an
Yeah.
immediate timeout. So now there's 1.4 seconds on the clock.
Okay.
They throw it in. They rebound it over to another guy who has only been in the NBA 1 year. He was
Okay.
driving for DoorDash last year.
Oh my God.
He shoots a free throw,
Yeah.
hits the three, ties it up, takes it to
Woo!
overtime, and the Lakers win.
Oh my
Now,
God, I got shivers. That's so fun.
right? So where in that process did they say, I'm a loser? We're going to lose this.
No.
So that's what I say is like, be careful about the way you talk to yourself about money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for most people, for you, and I learned this lesson when I was in the music business, that, suing people can be very expensive, so that's a lesson you take away. And, And what is the best, you've learned a lot from that. My son in his first business, the legal fees ate up all of their startup money and they didn't have enough to launch the actual product.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's one lesson you learned from that, right? But the other thing I would say is that in today's world, and we have talked about this, most of us are not shopaholics. Most of us are maybe eating that avocado toast out occasionally. People are not in debt today because they're stupid or they have anything to be, like to blame themselves for. But a debt problem is at its heart, other than the legal thing that you went through, which is a little bit different, but a debt problem for most people is a budget problem. And again, a budget problem means not cutting out cafe lattes and avocado toast. It means that we have to address the big ticket problems. We have to find solutions and answers. And there are solutions and answers, but they're brave and they're not found in the mainstream group think. That's what's kept everybody in debt. Also, and again, I'm not just saying that I only get like, I don't know, maybe $2 out of every book. So I'm not saying this to sell books, but the ABCs of Money for College was written so that people can get a better degree for up to half the cost. So I graduated from USC. I did get a dean scholarship. So, okay, that's one thing, right? Like, I mean, I know that's not everybody's going to get an academic scholarship. And in fact, college isn't right for everybody. So we talk about that in the ABCs of Money for College too.
Nice.
But I actually got my AA at Santa Monica College. And so even if I hadn't gotten the dean scholarship, I would have paid less than half of what everybody else paid for that same degree from USC. So that's what I mean to say is that the way that people are kind of put through the grind mill is that they take the SAT and then they go ahead and apply to 5 universities, and whichever one will accept them, they just go right there. Right. And there's no thought pattern. They have no idea what they want to do or want to even study. And they come out with and they do it for the college experience, and then they come out with all this debt. And that's not a college experience that they're going to love if they have crushing debt and now have to live in the garage of their parents, So I'm just saying there is another way. So a lot of the people that are really crushing in debt right now, it's definitely not your fault. You definitely should not be beating yourself up or your partner. You have to start understanding how you can solve these problems. And, that's going to be the game changer, but also talking to yourself more like an athlete would. None of those Lakers said we're done at 1.6 seconds.
No,
and,
this is where our expertise collide. It's like our intimate relationship with ourselves. How are we talking to ourselves? And when you have that solid relationship on the inside, you can open your heart and you can make those brave decisions and go against mainstream that is wanting you to stay in fear or debt so you can be controlled, etc. So I love the root of what we're talking about here. It's the same root, an intimate relationship with money, an intimate relationship with ourselves. It all makes a lot of sense. I want to go into this event that's coming up January 20th. It's an online retreat, New Year, New You Money Makeover. So, and I want people to go to your website, nataliepace.com, and go down to the bottom where you can learn more about it. But what can they expect in those 3 days? And it is recorded, but you really recommend they be there in real time.
Yeah. So it's the curriculum portion of it is recorded, and that's about half the day. And then the other half of the day is that I'll say, okay, here, let's play the billionaire game so that you understand the Thrive budget more intimately. And I can course correct you a little bit. So we'll play games like that. Here's what a stock report card looks like. What do you see on here, right? Or, okay, here's the easy as a pie chart nest egg strategy. Let's find those 10 funds that you might be interested in. What do you think is hot this year? So all of these things we talk about and we design it, and you walk out with a plan that can actually work. So that's it. So day 1 is nest egg strategies. Day 2 is what's hot, what's really not that you think might be hot. And then day 3 is what's safe. And the really good news is that you can get paid now to just save your money a little bit, but you got to be really smart about it because there's a lot of these safe vehicles that are actually losing money and illiquid negative yield. So it's a real swirling eddy out there that you have to be able to kayak through to the promised land.
All right. So we still need to educate ourselves about this. And a wonderful way to start the year, rather than going into this contraction and of fear of recession, to empower yourself and to be the boss of your money.
And let me put it in a visual for you. If you see economic storms on the horizon, but you know that your financial house is sound, you don't have to go into fear. Right. And if you don't know that your financial house is sound, that's where the fear is coming from. So what within me needs to grow, so this is no longer a problem. You got to fix the money house, right? Yes. And you shouldn't have blind faith that your broker, which is probably a broker salesman, has fixed the financial house. You should make sure that you know exactly what's, how insulated your house is, how protected from, a drop in stocks and or negative yielding illiquid bonds. And even if that sounds like gobbledygook to you, by the end of 3 days, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You should have known it in high school, and you'll learn it at a 3-day retreat.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. As we complete, I want to make sure everybody knows nataliepace.com. I think I'd like just to end with this magic token of gratitude, and just keep us in this intimate relationship with the divine. I really believe money is meant to be a tool for us to give our gifts, our genius to humanity. So if you just speak about that with your tithing, with the magic token.
1 second, I apologize so much. We just had a big someone at the door. Can you just ask me one more time? I apologize for that.
That's okay, hon. Thank you so much. So just like to end with this energy of gratitude and giving of our money. I really believe money is a tool for us to give our gifts, live our genius, etc. So just reading about gratitude with money, the magic token of gratitude.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'll tell you what I share in the gratitude game. And this one kind of came as a download. Sometimes I get misty when I talk about it. But when you think about, you think about the first time that money changed hands, and you go back to the cave, and you might see a mother, and her child has been in this fever, and you're worried that the child might die, and everything you do isn't working. And you've heard that there's a medicine woman in the next village. So you run over there and you say, please, please save my child. She comes back. Herb saves the child, right? And you're like, holy crap. And what can you do for this person? Yeah. And she's like, well, bring me some bread. Your bread is delicious, right? And so every day for 6 months, you go and you bring her bread, and maybe your husband has caught a deer and he brings her jerky or something. So, when we're not grateful, and it's funny because I went in Santa Monica, if you can't believe it, the gasoline price up the street is $7.98 a gallon, which is insane. And I looked at that and I was like, I'm so glad that I use public transportation and micromobility. Now, isn't that interesting? Because I know that almost 99% of everybody else in the city sees that sign and says, grr, right? They'd say the opposite. And that's a feeling, that's a real feeling. And I wasn't forcing it. It was just like, wow, I'm so glad I'm not a slave to that. You know what I mean? And so what I'm saying here is, if your bills are not things that you're grateful for, then we have to fix it. Right? That's the problem. The problem is that, if you can't look at your electric bill and say, and by the way, I know people that live in beautiful houses here in Santa Monica with solar panels. Their electric bill is $35. They have no problem paying that bill and saying thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I know other people that have to pay a $1,200 electric bill. There's no way they say thank you. So there are solutions. If you're paying a big electric bill, what can you do about that? Do you own your own home? Do you live in a sunny state? Should you have solar panels? If you live in Wyoming, should you insulate better? I mean, I've been in, passive homes in upstate New York, and they had to turn on the heating twice. That's it in the winter. So, there's so much out there, and it's not expensive. It's wisdom,
Yeah. Oh, I like this. Thank you for also showing us the depth of your heart with being so moved
I'm so sorry. Oh,
no, not sorry at all. No, that was a thank you, not a don't do that. That was a thank because as we go through, I mean, when I coach couples, they come to me because there's a money issue, a sex issue. Like this is one of the main issues, money for relationships. So for us to stay in our body, feel our feelings all the way from gratitude that moves us to tears, and also being kind and compassionate for the part of us that's afraid as we lean in and make brave choices and find the solutions and get home to gratitude. I really appreciate this full conversation. And I also want the viewers and listeners to know she also has a retreat in England in March that I'm highly considering attending because my relationship with money is it's a huge priority of an intimate relationship for me. It allows for me to serve humanity better and enjoy my life on the planet. So thank you so much, Natalie, for being with us today. And for all of you, I'd like you to go to nataliepace.com. I'd like you to go to Amazon and look up her name for all of her different books that we talked about as well. Educate yourself and be sure that this conversation wasn't just an inspiration and then you go off and do something else. Literally take an action. Take an action so the trajectory of your life shifts because you took the time to listen to this. And let us just start by sending you to her website, nataliepace.com. All right, Miss. Thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you more this coming year. I'm so grateful as I choose to have more financial wisdom, having sisters, single mom sisters that so I don't feel ashamed and I feel empowered. I'm really grateful that you exist. Thank you for being with us today on Intimate Conversations. And we love all of you. Intimacy with self. Just breathe in and from that deep inner place inside, bravely move forward on this planet. We love you. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Au revoir.
Thank you for joining us for another edgy, transparent episode. I want you to be able to do more, stress less, feel happier, like I have with Magic Mind. So for Intimate Conversations listeners, you can get 40% off with my code INTIMATE20 when you go to magicmind.co/intimate. You're going to feel amazing, I promise. Thank you for being who you are. I love the shit out of you. Until next time, I've got your back.